cover the wireless and smart devices. They kind of close siblings of each other. One cannot live without the other one, or one facilitates the other one. And what are the issues, and how do we solve some of this problem? Uh, uh, this is sort of the situation everywhere, and one of the things that I hear from many of our customers who deploy our system is the number of alerts have gone by 15 times, 20 times. I get the alerts in 1 month as much as I used to get in a year's time, and it must be your system. And when you do the diagnostics, it's all coming from these little devices, and people haven't been able to manage them. More than that, it's like a swamp of a whole bunch of devices that come in. And in fact, the household, my household has about 4 of these, including the tablets and everything else. So, and just the 2 of us live there. So, I don't know what all must be happening in a corporation. We in wireless security have been traveling around the world for past, I would say 8, 9, 10 years. And we have been to pretty much, I've been to at least over 45, 50 airports. And everywhere I go, I turn on my little scanner, and that's what I've seen. It's getting better, but you will still see all kinds of things on Wi-Fi, misconfigured, mismanaged, open, people doing all kinds of things. And it's not always malice that is at the base of it, but it is often the lack of understanding, or they just don't know. I was at our booth, and a couple of people stopped by and said, how are you different from everybody else that I buy, D-Link, Netgear, Cisco, everybody else. So that's kind of defines as to what is our understanding of this technology. I want to just leave, don't go into the details of these slides. I think I'm sure Nalcon will probably send you, but it's a couple of takeaways from these slides is that there are 3 broad areas where wireless networks are not commissioned properly. One is we don't put proper security on them at times. We have unmanaged devices in our environment, and we'll talk a little bit about them. And then the third one which is happening is many of us, because we are banned from using things on our wired infrastructure, we take the backdoor route, which is Wi-Fi easily gives, to do things. Sometimes they are not malicious, but we just want that freedom. But that can lead to not only identity leakage, but it can also lead to data leakage, especially with these kind of devices. Again, a very, I use this slide in my training, so don't expect to learn all of this in one shot. We are here today and tomorrow, talk about it. But there are a bunch of attacks over here. If you take the yellow box out, you will still see red arrows. That means people who do not have Wi-Fi still run the risk of Wi-Fi security, because some things can happen on your network, doesn't matter whether you have Wi-Fi or not. On the right hand side, what we are talking about is something there, when you're traveling, like I'm here right now, who is protecting this device? Who's protecting my laptop? Who's protecting, maybe I'm carrying a tablet. How do I follow the corporate policy when I'm traveling around? There are a lot of issues which we still haven't come to grips with, especially with people carrying. One of the CIOs walked me through a system integrator, and he told me, Kiran, just look at every desk. You will see minimum 3 devices, often 4. So, you will see a computer, you will definitely sometimes see a phone, you will see a tablet, and many places a Kindle or some other thing was sprinkled around. So, people have just multiple devices in their environment, and that makes it very difficult. This is sort of the threat. Please help us understand for your benefit what all Wi-Fi threats exist, but they are more than what you can probably imagine, and all of them are at layer 2. This is my smartphone, this is the one, and you do not need certificate to get onto a network. So, my laptop, if certificates are configured, my laptop will need a certificate, but if I use a Galaxy Android phone, smartphone, I can go right through. So, if an employee brings a device, smart device, and connects to your network, it will come from an unmanaged device, but it will be an authorized user. That's something that most of us do not think about. So, it's very important to know that these devices can be more, they can enter the environment a lot faster. I have heard many times people call me and said, I saw an Android hotspot in my environment. Now, what does that mean to the people around it? I can use the Android hotspot to use internet. Now, you don't have to, when you're doing it in your office, you're bypassing the entire infrastructure that has been put for security, and you're using a backdoor entry. And it is more frequent. One other thing that has happened with BYOD, many of the threats that we used to talk about and see in smaller percentages are now becoming lot more and lot more frequent and with many people. And that's, I think, one of the things that's happening with these things, because most of you know that I can convert this into an access point and connect it to network and provide a hotspot in exactly 30 seconds with 4 clicks. And that was not possible before these kind of devices came in. Okay, just skip. So just to summarize for you, there are 3 broad, in my opinion, threats. You connect to enterprise network from a smart device, whichever way you got there, and you lose the device. When you lose the device, the chances of you losing your phone is a lot more than chances of you losing your laptop. Now the data is gone, and if you have come through the back door, you don't even know what's gone. I remember in London, Baker Street, I think there is a place where lost and found many of these devices, and people are looking for these devices not for the device, but the data that they can get out of these kind of devices. Second one is, obviously, it's an unmanaged device. Most phones are unmanaged except BlackBerry. Many iPads are unmanaged if your people are bringing. They are 50%. I've seen some are corporate given, some are not. If anything which is personal, it is the hygiene has not been checked. The hygiene is not checked. You don't know what the device is. Okay? And the third one, which is what I talked about, is the tethering, because of which anybody can give internet access to anyone by just doing bridging. And that is easy straight from these kind of devices. So what you need for security, couple of things, that the devices are all over the place, number one. Number two, Wi-Fi is a layer 2 phenomena. So all your security at layer 3 and above will always have a hole. Remember that. Will always have a hole. If you have locked your front door, but if your back door is open, howsoever small the back door is, there is a chance that somebody will get in. And because, again, the second point is, it is an unlicensed band. That means anybody anywhere can turn on a transmitter in 2.4 and a 5 gigahertz band without taking any regulatory approval. That means your neighbor, your employees, anybody will have a radio which is emanating in your environment. Many of our customers have asked me, can I shut down a smart device as an access point when I see in my ear? My answer to that is no. The reason is, it's an unlicensed band. No regulator, including the regulator in India, will allow you to shut down a device which is not in your physical premise. You may see the signal, but that doesn't allow you to stop it. So you need to have different mechanisms. What you need is a protection of the air in order to make sure that these devices plus the Wi-Fi connections are secure. Okay. I will not go into how part of it, but you're welcome to see the stuff which is out here, the airtight Wi-Fi. You will see what it is. From a policy perspective, I want to leave this thought with you. From a security and wireless policy perspective, you want your authorized users, your employees, your guests to connect to the proper Wi-Fi. You want to leave the outsiders undisturbed. You don't want to disturb your neighbor. And everything else you will find either is malicious or vulnerable, and you must have proper regulatory approved mechanism to block it. Other than, as I understand, the government and government mandated organizations, none of us are allowed to do radio jamming. I hear all the time people talk about radio jamming. As far as I understand, radio jamming in 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, we as civilians should not be doing. So if you're being told about radio jamming, that's not allowed. You need to have proper mechanisms to do that. So, I think a couple of last slides. I sort of looked at what all people are trying to use. If you look at the network security control, people use Wi-Fi infrastructure. They put the right kind of infrastructure. Some people would wireless intrusion detection prevention, and there are a number of organizations are looking at network access. And you can see what does what. So if you're looking at detecting devices in the air, a wireless intrusion prevention system does it, a Wi-Fi infrastructure does it, NAC also does it. Blocking these, Wi-Fi infrastructure cannot do it, NAC does it partially, it cannot look at soft rogues. Wireless intrusion prevention, proper one can do that. Similarly, can it block extrusions? Only wireless intrusion prevention can do extrusions if you have an Android hotspot and somebody is trying to go out. Similarly, if you are on device management, then you need an MDM if you want to wipe out the data and stuff like that. That's the current state of the art. Somebody asked me yesterday night in the introduction, is this the end of client agents? And to me, I still don't see an end of client agents if you want to properly install some of these kind of infrastructure. So if you are looking at BYOD, you want to make sure that you have a mechanism by which devices are detected automatically, a whitelist is created automatically, and then based on the hygiene that you applied, they are approved and then they are into the system. And then the second part, where if the device is lost, you must have a mechanism to wipe out the data. A little bit on the regulation. MCIT regulation, as I understand, if I have to take simple thing, if something happens on your network, a terror mail goes out or somebody misuses it, do we know who our user is? And in this phenomena, your MAC address, your smartphone, all of these are important, not just the IP address, because either the MAC address or IP address by themselves will be clueless. You need to combine both of them. RBI guidelines, if you're from banking, finance industry, that's what you want to do. Interesting thing about those guidelines is there is a chapter on wireless security, but wireless security is applicable across the guideline if you start seeing it. That's the important part if you're a banker. I also saw a couple of years back, Ministry of Home Affairs, that all sensitive government installations shall be no Wi-Fi, and if they are Wi-Fi, they shall have a proper best-in-class wireless intrusion prevention. I haven't seen the regulation myself, and then there are some international ones which also apply to depending upon the kind of business we're in. So, couple of points. See, this was our assumption that anybody who can connect to our network must be a trusted user, and a speaker in the morning said that's not always true, very true. The trusted users will log in from a managed device, and you will quickly figure out that both of these are no longer valid, number one with Wi-Fi and number two with smart devices. So the entire security infrastructure needs to factor these two things in, that with Wi-Fi, an outsider can reach your network. Now what they can do is different thing. Similarly, everybody, a valid user on your network need not always be from a laptop or a computer that you have created hygiene with. It can be from a device that they brought in themselves. That's my opinion. Thank you. Questions, ideas, comments?
Any questions?
By the way, airtight, is that a WIPS?
Excuse me?
Airtight, your product, is that a WIPS?
That WIPS is one part of it. That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. Airtight does have a WIPS. And just to let you know, when you talk about WIPS, you need to have sensing capabilities. If you do not have sensing capability and you do not have automatic prevention, then you won't have WIPS. So these two are very important. Like access point, for example, a Wi-Fi access point must be able to bridge wireless to wired and provide the traffic. Similarly, a WIPS requires ability to sense the environment. So that functionality needs to be there in the system.
So how is it different from other WIPS like air magnet or air defense? How is it different from?
Let me do one thing. Let me talk to you outside, but let me give you what a wireless intrusion prevention system, irrespective of the vendor, including ourselves, must have. It must be able to sense. It must be able to classify what's yours, what's your neighbor's, and it must be able to prevent connections that don't follow your policy, and it must deliver you the reports. Those are 3 or 4, and it should be able to locate devices on the floor map. Now, who does what is something that, not this floor, we can talk outside. Okay?
Any more questions?
While this BYOD management would be good for the enterprise, how would you implement a BYOC, like bring your own cloud if you've heard of it? Uh, how would you implement that management in a similar scenario?
I can give you an on-the-fly answer, but I have not thought about it very clearly. But my understanding of cloud is, I'm doing computing, and there is a server or there is an infrastructure somewhere away from me, right? Now, it honestly depends on what you're trying to do. But if I were to restrict myself to the domain that I work in today, cloud to me is a server which is having repository of all wireless connections, all devices, all BYOD. Now, it could be inside the organization, it could be away into the public cloud.
Okay.
One important point I'll share with you from our perspective, that any wireless intrusion prevention or a sensing system picks up details about devices and connections. And that's what goes into the server, not the payload that goes in. We normally don't pick the payload. Many people are concerned that you're putting it in the cloud. I'm picking things which even a public scanner picks it up. So it's really not sensitive from that perspective. That's one thing I can share with you. If you have any other application, I'm probably not the right person to talk about BYOC.
Let me be more specific. For example, if a user has a managed device also, what's to stop them from uploading a sensitive document which is there on a managed device to their Dropbox or their Google Drive?
Good question, good question. It depends on the user. It depends on their security posture and their sensitivity posture. I, for example, would not do it on many of the things that I use in Airtight, but there are things that I would put it on the Dropbox.
So there's no technical solution to this besides awareness?
Not as I understand it, but you may want to talk to people who know it much more deeper to do it. But as I understand, I don't think so, right?
Okay, thank you.
This is Rishi. To have your answer, there is DRM, wherein I know of a company, Seclor. So they kind of lock your documents to your domain. So whenever you need to open the document, you have to have a LDAP associated. Otherwise, nobody else can, open that document. So there is confidentiality, public, private, whatever the kind of document is. And you can set a list of users that only these 5 users can open this. I'll talk to you.
But I'll just add one thing. You're absolutely right. But there is a lot of evolution of this stuff that is happening, including user acceptance. So that's what needs to be factored in.
Hi, this is Mohan here.
Yeah.
How do you prevent or how do you take care of spoofing basically in your solution?
Okay. So let me just repeat the question in case you've not heard it. If I understood it correctly, how do we take care of spoofing? Now, when it comes to spoofing for Wi-Fi, it is typically spoofing of MAC addresses. When you have spoofing of MAC addresses, it is spoofing of an access point's MAC address or a wireless client's MAC address. A good wireless intrusion prevention system should be able to detect a spoofing MAC address and a spoofed MAC address. In, I would say, 9 out of 10 cases, you should be able to prevent automatically the spoofer. But there are situations, for example, if spoofing is happened by another authorized user, it's possible that you're not able to do it within your system automatically, in which case you need to have a manual remediation. But it's basically spoofing of MAC addresses, which a good wireless intrusion prevention system will take care of for you. Any other question? Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.